Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. On September 29, 1975, the country's first black-owned and operated television station, WGPR, signed on right here in Detroit. Now the WGPR-TV Historical Society is commemorating that date by kicking off a new program series that will screen documentaries, news specials, and movie shorts at the organization's museum. Up first is the documentary Summer '67, which focuses on the people who died in the Detroit Rebellion. Take a look.
Not a lot of people remember the 43 people who died during the rebellion, but their relatives do.
What do you remember about that summer in 1967?
Dad would get us up and we'd go to the park and we'd hang out and we'd have the best of time. You know, we had pockets full of candy and swings and, you know, playing in the sandbox and doing all kind of stuff, you know, and going to the bottle of.
I miss you bad, baby, I don't know how true love can come and go. All my dreams have turned to tears, every smile now disappears.
My dad was a very ambitious man. He was a welder, and he was a singer and a boxer. He used to box at Constantine with Jackie Wilson, and he used to sing, and he knew a lot of the guys in Motown. He was probably gonna make a group out of our family. Yeah, he was gonna make us sing. He strived to have a better way of living, and for us to have a better way of living. And he instilled a lot of good things in us at a young age, and really wish that he had been around longer so we could have learned more from him.
July 25th, the third day of the civil unrest. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Arthur Johnson and Perry Williams were inside a pawn shop. Two Detroit police officers went into the shop. They shot Johnson in the basement. Upstairs, one of the officers said he turned and saw a man with a long, dark object in his hands. He shot and killed the man. It was Perry Williams. No long, dark object was recovered from the scene.
How'd your mom deal with the death of your dad?
Well, that summer, my mom said she didn't want to live in that house anymore. So she was making plans for us to move.
Joining me now is the director of the documentary, Bruce Harper, along with executive producer Joe Spencer and Karen Hudson Samuels from the WGPR-TV Historical Society. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so let's talk about this documentary. That clip is riveting, both in terms of the joy that he talks about in terms of his dad and the memories of him, but then that instant sort of sadness about what happened.
Right. I find that the family members that we actually spoke to have similar stories and don't all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, they all have that gap. And depending on how old they were, it manifests itself differently.
Yeah.
Like near the end of the documentary, Kim Hood has a real deep scar that she's still carrying around.
Right.
The only police officer to die during the rebellion, his kids don't have that. They just say, well, what if?
Right.
What if this would have happened? What if that would have happened? What, you know, those kind of things. So
yeah.
They have the same story and they don't all at the same time.
Yeah. Put this documentary in the sort of context of WGPR history.
Well, first of all, Bruce and I and Karen, we all worked at WGPR during our career, and we worked together, so we had that connection. This documentary really started from our work with the Detroit Historical Society when we had a presentation there, and we just thought that we should tell a story that was a little different than what most the other storytellers would tell, and that was that the civil disturbance was more than just fires and burning and looting, that there were lives that were lost and there were families that were deeply affected, and that it should be more of a humane story than a story about loss.
Yeah.
You know, a loss in terms of material loss, but loss in terms of families and impact.
Right.
So that's what we sought to do, and and Bruce really did a lot of research.
Yeah.
He and the reporter, and they really found some really interesting people that still are affected by it. You know, unlike, you know, most people are gone that was
Sure.
that lived at that time, and that was 50 years. You know, but there's still a lot of people who were impacted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to tell the story that Joe walked in and said, "Hey, I want to do a documentary about the riots," and I'm like, "Ah,
Everyone's doing a documentary about the riots, right?
I don't really want to be involved in that." But when he started talking about
Yeah.
his angle and what he thought and about those 43, I was like, 43 people died?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And we started talking about, and then, you know, they weren't all looters.
Right. Right.
Some people were going to work. Some kids were in their apartments. I mean, there's a wide range of things, and it was a very interesting kind of take that Joe kind of brought to us.
Yeah, yeah. Karen, this is an interesting way to celebrate the anniversary of WGPR going on the air with work like this. Talk about that decision.
Well, I mean, it's a coming together of a lot of wonderful factors. Bruce had started his career at WGPR and went on to have a great career as a videographer and now documentary filmmaker. And so we thought, this is a story that has a lot of reverence, and he does an excellent job. But one of the things people don't get a chance to do is talk to the directors, the producers, the writer. How did this all come together? We just heard Bruce say, he was approached by Joe and he said, "Oh, wait a minute. So what are the behind the lens things that happened? How did he go about persuading and convincing family members to appear?" I mean, that's not easy.
Talk about such different
things. So filmmaking is a process that has a lot of interesting aspects and angles, and we very much want people to come out and see a fantastic documentary, get a chance to talk to not only Bruce Harper, but Sarah Hewlett, who is the on-camera narrator.
Yeah,
She'll be present.
I recognized her there. In the
There you go. You know, she's a Michigan radio journalist.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is an opportunity then to connect the debut of this program series to our anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're just really excited.
And I'd just like to add is that this goes into the longer vision that we have for the WGPR Museum, and that is WGPR was a training center.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
and it launched a lot of people's careers. So we'd like to continue that tradition of teaching and bringing people in and having to understand the craft, and maybe bringing in some new young people into the craft of communications.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
this carries along.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bruce.
He has a great point, because when I was there, I was 18, 19. Of course, so I knew everything, right?
So we all did.
Right.
We all did.
So I would go walk through the hallways, and I would see the old guys asleep in their room, and I was like, "Oh, they don't know nothing." And then I, leave, start my own company, and I find out that this guy was ahead of the curve. Dr. Banks, I mean, he provided an opportunity for African Americans where there was no opportunity at all. Yeah. And so he was doing some fantastic work. So, 20 years later, I'm thinking, well, he probably was asleep because he was tired by doing all that.
He's working
by providing opportunities
hard,
for so many people.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I noticed in the clip is the image of the stories about the people who died that appeared in the newspaper. But they didn't get a lot of coverage when this happened. It wasn't until much later that we started to look at who these folks were.
It was incredibly difficult for a lot of things that should have been apparent to me, because it's not like I hadn't done a documentary before, but recounting or trying to make connection with people to an event 50 years in the past was incredibly difficult. Yeah. And raising the money was incredibly difficult. And so there were a lot of choices that end up on screen that actually looked like, like this thoughtful idea. But a lot of them kind of came out of necessity.
Yeah.
Necessity. The free press and the news had some of that, and we stumbled across some of those people, and they had some of this, and that made the documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It looks like a wonderful piece, and congratulations to you guys on the museum and commemorating the station's founding. Thanks for being here.